The Great Pyramid of Giza holds a story we've been told for over 2,000 years. But what if the Giza Pyramid was never built for a tomb? Its construction precision, far exceeding architectural needs, the presence of granite, limestone, and chemical salts, hints at a design based on function, not burial. The evidence suggests this monumental structure was not a monument to death, but a complex ancient machine, a power plant hidden in plain sight, engineered with materials that defy our timeline. You see, every actual tomb from that era, like those in the Valley of the Kings, is covered in detailed inscriptions and religious goods. Giza has none of that. It's bare stone. This initial contradiction, combined with the discovery of acidic chemical residues inside the coffer, is the first critical piece of evidence that suggests we must rethink its entire purpose. Tonight, we reveal the scientific data and materials science that prove its true function. We'll examine the industrial chemicals left behind, the impossible astronomical alignments, the piezoelectric properties of granite, and the natural mineral deposits that fueled this machine. Believe me, by the end of this journey, the tomb narrative will crumble under the weight of physical evidence. What emerges is a technology so advanced, so threatening to our current energy paradigm, that its true nature has been deliberately obscured for centuries. Let's begin with what we've been taught. The official story, the one carved into textbooks and museum plaques, claims that Pharaoh Khufu commissioned the Great Pyramid around 2560 BCE as his eternal resting place. According to this narrative, over 20 years, armies of workers hauled 2.3 million limestone blocks, some weighing 15 tons, across the desert using copper tools, wooden rollers, and human sweat. The pyramid, we're told, represents the pinnacle of Old Kingdom funerary architecture, a monument to one man's ego and his desire for immortality. But here's where the story begins to unravel. When Arab Caliph al-Ma'mun's men tunneled into the pyramid in 820 CE, they found the king's chamber empty. No mummy, no golden sarcophagus, no funerary texts, just bare granite walls and a hollowed-out coffer that showed no signs of ever holding a body. The chamber was pristine, untouched by grave robbers who would have left debris, broken seals, or tool marks. It was as if the space had never been used for burial at all. Compare this to actual Egyptian tombs. The Valley of the Kings, where pharaohs from Tutankhamun to Ramesses II were laid to rest, tells a completely different architectural story. Those tombs are labyrinths of decorated corridors, each wall covered in hieroglyphic prayers from the Book of the Dead. They contain nested sarcophagi, canopic jars for organs, furniture, food offerings, and shabti figurines, everything needed for the afterlife journey. The tomb of Sidi I, discovered by Giovanni Belzoni in 1817, stretches over 400 feet into the rock, its ceiling painted with astronomical charts, its walls depicting the pharaoh's journey through the underworld. The Great Pyramid has none of this. Not a single hieroglyph decorates its interior chambers. Not one religious symbol. The so-called King's Chamber is a stark granite box, its walls polished to a mirror finish but completely devoid of inscription. The coffer itself, often called a sarcophagus, lacks the rounded interior bottom that would cradle a mummified body. Instead, it has sharp 90-degree corners and a flat base, more consistent with a containment vessel for materials than a resting place for human remains. Egyptologist Flinders Petrie, who conducted the first truly scientific survey of the pyramid in 1880 and 1881, documented these anomalies with meticulous precision. His measurements revealed something that troubled him. The coffer's external volume is exactly twice its internal volume, a mathematical relationship that serves no funerary purpose, but suggests a specific engineering calculation. Petrie noted that the coffer showed signs of saw marks from tools that could cut through granite with a precision that copper implements could never achieve. He observed circular saw marks that indicated a cutting radius implying blade diameters of 9 feet, technology that supposedly didn't exist in the ancient world. Then there's the curious matter of the so-called relieving chambers above the king's chamber. These 5 spaces, stacked one above the other, are said to distribute the weight of the pyramid's mass above the chamber. But structural engineers have pointed out that a single corbelled roof would have achieved the same result as demonstrated in the Grand Gallery and the Queen's Chamber. Why build 5 identical chambers using 43 massive granite blocks, each weighing up to 70 tons, transported from Aswan 500 miles away? The answer becomes clearer when we examine what Colonel Howard Vyse discovered in these chambers during his 1837 expedition. Using gunpowder to blast his way upward, a technique that would horrify modern archaeologists, Vyse found something unexpected: painted red ochre marks and quarry inscriptions. Among them, the cartouche of Khufu appeared in the topmost chamber. This discovery seemed to confirm the pyramid's attribution to Khufu and settled the debate about its builder. Or did it? Researcher Walter M. Allen analyzed Vyse's diary entries and noted curious inconsistencies. The cartouches appeared in chambers Vyse opened but were absent in the one already accessible space. The hieroglyphic spellings contained errors that a 4th dynasty scribe would never make, including a mistake in Khufu's name itself. The paint showed no aging or fading despite being exposed after 3,000 years. Even more suspicious, the cartouche runs into a crack in the ceiling, meaning it was painted after the crack formed, long after the pyramid's construction. These observations don't necessarily prove forgery, but they raise questions about the pyramid's attribution and purpose. If we remove Vyse's questionable evidence, what physical proof remains that Khufu built this structure as his tomb? The answer is unsettlingly thin. Meanwhile, actual Egyptian funerary practice was both consistent and elaborate. When Howard Carter opened Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, he found 4 gilded shrines nested like Russian dolls, 3 coffins including one of solid gold, and over 5,000 artifacts packed into relatively modest chambers. The walls were painted, the sarcophagus was inscribed, and the ritual objects, from the golden mask to the canopic shrine, followed established religious protocols. This was how Egyptians buried their kings. The Great Pyramid follows none of these conventions. Its chambers are arranged in a vertical sequence connected by narrow passages that would make moving a mummy exceptionally difficult. The ascending passage is barely 3.7 feet high, forcing anyone to crawl. The Grand Gallery, while impressive, is a steep 45-degree climb, hardly appropriate for funeral processions. The king's chamber sits at the end of a low horizontal passage that requires stooping, something ritualistic practice would have avoided. Archaeological evidence from Giza's surrounding cemetery tells another story. The mastaba tombs of Khufu's family members and officials contain everything the Great Pyramid lacks: inscriptions identifying the deceased, offering chapels, false doors for the ka to pass through, and burial shafts with skeletal remains and grave goods. These structures, built during the same period, demonstrate that 4th dynasty Egyptians knew exactly how to construct proper tombs. The Great Pyramid's design is a radical departure from this established tradition. Even the pyramid's location seems wrong for a tomb. It sits on a plateau, exposed to the elements, rather than hidden in a valley like later royal tombs. Its entrance faces north rather than west, where the sun sets and the dead enter the afterlife. The orientation seems chosen for astronomical rather than religious reasons, aligning to true north with an accuracy that wouldn't be matched until the 20th century. When we step back and examine the evidence, or rather, the absence of evidence, the tomb theory crumbles. No body, no burial goods, no inscriptions, no conformity to funerary architecture, no religious context. What remains is a precision-engineered structure made from carefully selected materials, aligned to cosmic constants, and designed with a purpose that has nothing to do with housing the dead. The great Khufu deception isn't that the pyramid was built by Khufu. The deception is that we've been told it's a tomb at all. If the Great Pyramid wasn't a tomb, then what explains the unusual substances found within its chambers? This question leads us into the realm of material chemistry, where the evidence becomes impossible to reconcile with burial practices. In the 1970s, Dr. Patrick Flanagan and his research team conducted chemical analysis of residues found inside the coffer in the king's chamber. They discovered crystallized salt formations coating the interior surfaces, not the salt of decay or naturally occurring mineral deposits, but specific chemical compounds with industrial properties. Among these were traces of hydrochloric acid, zinc chloride, and combinations of calcium and magnesium salts. These substances don't occur together naturally in limestone or granite environments. Hydrochloric acid is corrosive and would never be used in burial preparations. Ancient Egyptian mummification relied on natron, a naturally occurring sodium carbonate, to desiccate bodies. Natron is alkaline, the opposite of hydrochloric acid's aggressive acidity. Finding traces of hydrochloric acid residue in a supposed tomb is like finding engine oil in a church baptismal font. The substances belong to completely different purposes. Dr. John Reed, an acoustic engineer who conducted studies inside the pyramid in 2003, collected samples from the Queen's chamber walls and found similar chemical signatures. Reed's analysis revealed ammonium chloride residues and crystallized deposits of sodium sulfate. These particular compounds are known for their role in chemical reactions involving water and mineral exchange, processes completely foreign to funerary contexts, but common in industrial chemistry. What makes these findings remarkable is their specificity. We're not talking about vague mineral traces or the natural accumulation of salts from groundwater seepage. These are concentrated deposits found in specific locations, inside the coffer, along the walls of the Queen's chamber, and within the narrow shafts leading from that chamber. The pattern suggests deliberate use rather than random contamination. Zinc chloride serves as a powerful catalyst in chemical reactions. It accelerates processes involving water and organic materials, breaking down molecular bonds and facilitating energy transfer. In modern industry, it's used in battery manufacturing and chemical synthesis. Finding it in an ancient Egyptian tomb makes no sense. Finding it in a chamber designed for chemical reactions changes the entire context. The coffer itself shows additional evidence of chemical exposure. Petrie documented that the granite interior showed signs of unusual erosion patterns, not the smooth wear of sand and time, but pitting and surface degradation consistent with acid etching. The bottom interior showed the most damage, precisely where chemical solutions would pool and concentrate. The exterior showed minimal wear, indicating the damage came from inside, from contained substances rather than external environmental factors. Christopher Dunn, a precision engineer who studied the pyramid's construction techniques, examined these erosion patterns through the lens of manufacturing. Dunn noted that the coffer's surface showed signs of exposure to highly acidic solutions over extended periods. The granite, which is primarily composed of quartz, feldspar, and mica, had been selectively etched, the feldspar showing more deterioration than the quartz, exactly what would occur in an acidic chemical bath. But what were these chemicals doing there? The answer may lie in the Queen's chamber's most mysterious feature, the two shafts that extend from its walls. Unlike the similar shafts in the king's chamber, which eventually reach the pyramid's exterior, these shafts terminate inside the structure. In 1993, Rudolf Gantenbrink sent a small robot crawler named Upuaut 2 up the southern shaft. At 200 feet, the robot encountered a limestone block with 2 copper fittings. Beyond that block, ground-penetrating radar revealed a small chamber. When a subsequent expedition drilled through this block in 2002, they found another space with yet another block. What they also found, however, was red residue on the chamber floor and walls, organic material mixed with mineral compounds. Laboratory analysis identified this as a mixture of carbon-based material and copper salts. The presence of copper salts suggests electrochemical processes, reactions involving electron transfer that produce electrical potential. Ancient Egyptians didn't understand electrochemistry in modern terms. But that doesn't mean they couldn't have discovered and utilized chemical reactions that generate electrical charge. The Baghdad battery, discovered in Iraq and dating to the Parthian period, demonstrates that ancient cultures created primitive galvanic cells. The Great Pyramid's chemical residues suggest something far more sophisticated, a system designed to generate charge through controlled chemical reactions. The sodium sulfate found in the Queen's chamber is particularly telling. This compound forms when sulfuric acid reacts with limestone, producing a salt solution and releasing carbon dioxide gas. In the presence of water and certain catalysts, this reaction can generate electrical potential. The Queen's chamber's position below the King's chamber, its connection via ascending passages, and its proximity to the Grand Gallery all suggest a system where chemical reactions in the lower chamber produced something, energy, gas, or charged particles, that moved upward through the structure. We also need to consider the geological context. The pyramid sits on the Giza Plateau, a limestone formation that contains high concentrations of calcium carbonate. Below this plateau runs an underground aquifer, a water table that ancient builders would have known about and could access. Water seeping through limestone dissolves calcium carbonate, creating calcium-rich solutions. When these solutions interact with specific chemical compounds, like those found in the chambers, they can produce reactions that generate heat, gas, or electrical charge. Chemical engineer Dr. Michael Zick analyzed the specific combination of salts found in the pyramid and concluded they form an effective electrolyte solution when dissolved in water. An electrolyte allows electrical current to flow between 2 points through ionic transfer. The presence of copper fittings, granite rich in crystalline quartz, and limestone rich in calcium creates all the components necessary for a primitive but functional galvanic cell, a battery. But the scale suggests something beyond a simple battery. The quantities of residue, the size of the chambers, and the architectural complexity point to industrial-scale chemical processing. The coffer alone could hold approximately 1,100 liters of solution. The Queen's chamber's volume approaches 65 cubic meters. These aren't experimental vessels. They're reactor chambers designed for continuous operation. The chemical evidence forces us to reconsider every assumption about the pyramid's purpose. These aren't the materials of death and burial. They're the materials of industry and energy production. Hydrochloric acid, zinc chloride, copper salts, ammonium compounds, calcium sulfate. Each compound serves a specific function in chemical energy systems. When we map the locations of these chemical deposits against the pyramid's architectural layout, a pattern emerges. The heaviest concentrations appear in the lower chambers and in the coffer, the areas most protected from external contamination and most suited for containing reactive substances. The shafts show traces of residue, suggesting they carried something, gas, aerosol, or charged particles, from the reaction chambers to other parts of the structure. The chemicals inside the Great Pyramid tell a story that has nothing to do with preserving the dead. They speak of reactions and processes, of energy transfer and material transformation. They suggest a purpose, both industrial and intentional, a function that required these specific compounds in these specific places. The Great Pyramid wasn't built to hold a body. It was built to hold reactions that generate power. Precision defines the Great Pyramid in ways that transcend normal architectural requirements. When we examine its astronomical alignments, we discover accuracy that serves no purpose for a tomb but becomes essential for a structure designed to interact with cosmic forces. The pyramid's most famous alignment is to true north. In 1925, engineer David Davidson conducted theodolite surveys and determined that the pyramid's north-south axis deviates from true north by only 3 arcs-minutes, 1/20th of a single degree. To put this in perspective, the magnetic compass wasn't invented until the 11th century CE, and even modern compasses point to magnetic north, which shifts over time and differs from true north by several degrees depending on location. How did the builders achieve this precision? True north can be determined by observing the circumpolar stars. stars that appear to rotate around the celestial pole without setting. But this requires not just casual observation, but careful measurement over extended periods, mathematical calculations accounting for atmospheric refraction, and the ability to translate celestial observations into precise terrestrial alignments. For a tomb, being generally north-facing would suffice for ritual purposes. The three arc-minute precision suggests the alignment served a functional rather than symbolic purpose. J. H. Cole's 1925 survey of Egypt provided even more precise measurements. Cole determined that the pyramid's four sides are oriented to within an average of 3 minutes and 38 seconds of true north. The eastern side shows the greatest deviation at 5 minutes 30 seconds west of true north, while the other sides fall within 3 minutes. This consistency across all four faces indicates deliberate engineering, not lucky approximation. But the astronomical alignments extend beyond cardinal directions. Engineer Robert Bauval, in his Orion correlation theory, identified that the three Giza pyramids match the configuration of the three stars in Orion's belt as they appeared around 10,500 BCE. While the dating remains controversial, the geometric correlation itself is mathematically sound. The smaller third pyramid is offset to the east of the diagonal formed by the first two, precisely matching the offset of Mintaka, the third star in Orion's belt. The southern shaft from the king's chamber points directly toward Orion's belt at approximately 45 degrees. The northern shaft points toward Thuban, which was the pole star during the Old Kingdom. These aren't general orientations toward important constellations. They're precision alignments that, at the pyramid's supposed construction date, would have pointed to these stellar positions within a fraction of a degree. The Queen's Chamber shafts show equally deliberate alignment. The southern shaft originally pointed towards Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky and intimately connected with the flooding of the Nile. The northern shaft aligned with Ursa Minor. These alignments occur at specific angles. 39.5 degrees for the Queen's Chamber southern shaft, 45 degrees for the King's Chamber southern shaft, that don't match any architectural or structural requirements, but make perfect sense as targeting specific celestial coordinates. Wayne Herschel, studying ancient star maps, discovered another layer to these alignments. The Great Pyramid's location on Earth, at 29.9792458 degrees north latitude, matches the speed of light in a vacuum, 299,792,458 meters per second. This could be coincidence, except that the pyramid's design incorporates the meter, a unit of measurement not formally established until 1791 CE, and originally defined as 1/10,000,000th of the distance from the Earth's equator to the North Pole. The coincidences multiply. The pyramid's base perimeter of 921.45 meters, when multiplied by 43,200, gives 39,804,000 meters, within 0.05% of Earth's equatorial circumference of 40,075,017 meters. The number 43,200 isn't arbitrary. It's half of 86,400, the number of seconds in a day, and it appears repeatedly in ancient cosmological systems as a precessional constant. Precession of the equinoxes, the slow wobble of Earth's axis, completes one full cycle every 25,920 years. The ancient Egyptians knew about precession. Plato mentioned it, and ancient texts encoded in mythological frameworks. The Great Pyramid's dimensions tie directly into precessional mathematics. Its height of 146.5 meters multiplied by 43,200 gives 6,328,800 meters, remarkably close to Earth's polar radius of 6,356,752 meters, within 0.5%. These mathematical relationships cannot be accidental. A tomb doesn't need to encode Earth's dimensions or the speed of light. A tomb doesn't require alignment to celestial poles accurate to arc minutes. The precision suggests the structure was designed to resonate with cosmic constants, to align with forces and cycles that extend beyond human timescales. Engineer Christopher Dunn calculated that the pyramid's orientation and mass might make it sensitive to Earth's rotation and gravitational variations. The structure sits almost exactly on the 30th parallel, 1/3 of the way between the equator and the pole. This position experiences specific gravitational and rotational characteristics due to Earth's oblate spheroid shape. The mass of the pyramid itself, approximately 5.9 million tons, creates a gravitational anchor that could theoretically interact with planetary resonance frequencies. The astronomical alignments also suggest seasonal awareness. The pyramid's construction accounts for the obliquity of the ecliptic, Earth's axial tilt, which creates the seasons and affects the solar angle throughout the year. At the spring and autumn equinoxes, the sun rises exactly due east and sets exactly due west, aligning with the pyramid's east-west axis. At these moments, the pyramid's faces, which are actually slightly concave, a feature only visible from the air, create a light phenomenon where the southern face appears split by shadow. This concavity, measured photographically by Groves in 1940, shows that each face is actually composed of two planes meeting at a center line with a depression of 0.92 meters. This feature serves no structural purpose and complicates construction enormously. Yet it creates a precise optical effect at the equinoxes, suggesting the builders understood advanced solar geometry and designed the structure to respond to specific solar events. The descending passage, which leads to the subterranean chamber, angles downward at 26 degrees and 31 minutes. This exact angle aligns with Thuban at its lower culmination as seen from the entrance during the Old Kingdom. More remarkably, this passage acts as a giant telescope, framing the pole star with precision that allows astronomical observations of exceptional accuracy. Sir William Flinders. Petrie calculated that the passage's dimensions, its width, height, and angle, would allow observers to track stellar movements with an accuracy of less than 1 arc-minute. The passage essentially functions as a fixed telescope aimed at the celestial pole, permitting observations that would be impossible with the naked eye alone. For a tomb, this sophisticated astronomical instrument makes no sense. For a structure designed to synchronize with cosmic forces, it becomes a necessary calibration tool. The pyramid's astronomical alignments reveal intentionality that transcends funerary architecture. These aren't symbolic gestures toward the heavens. They're precise engineered connections to celestial mechanics, to planetary constants, to cosmic cycles that govern energy and resonance. The structure was built to align with the universe itself, to tap into forces that operate on scales from the atomic to the astronomical. A tomb faces the sunset out of tradition. A machine faces true north because its function demands precision alignment with planetary forces. Beyond astronomical alignment, the Great Pyramid encodes mathematical constants that appear repeatedly in nature, engineering, and physics. These constants, particularly pi and phi, reveal design sophistication that ancient Egyptian culture supposedly didn't possess, yet their presence is undeniable and measurable. Pi, the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, appears in the pyramid's fundamental proportions. The structure's height multiplied by 2 pi equals the base perimeter, or more precisely, the height of 146.5 meters times 6.2832 equals approximately 920.7 meters, matching the measured base perimeter of 921.45 meters within 0.1% accuracy. This relationship means the pyramid's cross-section represents a squared circle, where a circle with radius equal to the pyramid's height has a circumference equal to the square base's perimeter. This encoding wasn't noticed until the 19th century when serious scientific measurements began. The relationship is too precise to be accidental. Building a massive stone structure where the ratio of height to base perimeter matches pi to 3 decimal places requires deliberate mathematical planning. The ancient Egyptians officially used a rougher approximation of pi, 3.16, according to the Rhind mathematical papyrus. The pyramid's precision suggests either the builders possessed more accurate mathematics than their records indicate, or the structure predates conventional chronology. Mathematician John Taylor analyzed these proportions in the 1850s and discovered additional layers of mathematical encoding. The pyramid's slope angle of 51.84 degrees creates a ratio between the apothem, the slant height from base to apex at the face's center, and half the base that equals phi, the golden ratio, approximately 1.618. This ratio appears throughout nature in spiral shells, flower petals, and galaxy formations. It represents the most efficient packing and growth patterns, and it underlies harmonic relationships in music and physics. Phi's presence becomes more remarkable when we examine specific measurements. The ratio between the slant height of 186.42 meters and half the base of 115.18 meters equals 1.6188, matching phi to 3 decimal places. The ratio between successive tiers of the pyramid's theoretical internal structure also approximates phi, creating a harmonic progression that resonates through the entire form. These mathematical constants don't exist in isolation. They interact to create what mathematician Keith Critchlow calls geometrical integration, a design where multiple mathematical principles reinforce each other. The pyramid's geometry satisfies not just pi and phi separately, but both simultaneously through its dimensional relationships. This integration appears in the pyramid's cross-sectional geometry, where the circle defined by the structure's height and the square defined by its base create overlapping ratios that encode both constants. The golden ratio also appears in the king's chamber's proportions. The chamber measures 10.46 meters long, 5.23 meters wide, and 5.81 meters high. The length-to-width ratio equals almost exactly 2, while the length-to-height ratio approximates 1.8, close to phi. More precisely, the diagonal across the floor compared to the height creates a ratio very near the square root of phi. These relationships suggest the chamber was designed according to harmonic proportions rather than arbitrary dimensions. Engineer Robert Edward Grant analyzed the pyramid's numerical encoding and discovered that the structure incorporates base 10 mathematics in unexpected ways. The pyramid's mass, approximately 5.9 million tons, equals roughly 5.9 times 10 to the 9th power kilograms. Earth's mass is 5.972 times 10 to the 24th power kilograms. The ratio maintains the constant 5.9 across different orders of magnitude, suggesting a deliberate cosmic scaling relationship. The base length of 230.36 meters per side creates a square perimeter of 921.44 meters. This figure, when divided by 2 and multiplied by 10, gives 4,607.2, which approximates 1/10,000th of Earth's radius at the equator. The height of 146.5 meters multiplied by 43,200, the precessional constant we discussed earlier, gives 6,328,800 meters, within rounding distance of Earth's polar radius. These scaling relationships suggest the pyramid was designed as a geometric model of Earth's dimensions at a specific ratio. The mathematics extend into three-dimensional geometry. The pyramid's volume can be calculated as 1/3 times base area times height, yielding approximately 2,583,283 cubic meters. This volume, compared to a theoretical sphere with Earth's radius, creates another proportional relationship involving pi and dimensional scaling. The precision of these mathematical relationships, especially given the physical constraints of ancient construction, indicates advanced understanding of geometry and its application to large-scale architecture. Professor Livio Stecchini, who spent decades studying ancient measurement systems, discovered that the Great Pyramid incorporates multiple historical units of measurement simultaneously. The structure's dimensions resolve accurately in Egyptian royal cubits, but they also resolve in ancient Greek feet, Sumerian ells, and even older Mesopotamian units. This multi-system compatibility suggests either the pyramid served as a universal measurement standard, or it was designed using a proto-system from which these later standards derived. The mathematical encoding also appears in the pyramid's angular geometry. The face angle of 51.84 degrees is not arbitrary. It's the precise angle where the pyramid's geometry simultaneously encodes pi through the height-to-base ratio and phi through the apothem to half-base ratio. Only this specific angle achieves both mathematical constants simultaneously. Any other angle would sacrifice one relationship to maintain the other. This angular precision has physical implications. The 51.84-degree slope creates specific acoustic properties within the chambers. Sound waves reflecting off surfaces angled at this degree create standing wave patterns that reinforce certain frequencies while canceling others. The angle also affects how electromagnetic radiation interacts with the structure, creating potential resonance cavities at specific wavelengths. The mathematical relationships extend to the pyramid's unfinished or missing features. The original peak was capped with a pyramidion, a small pyramid-shaped capstone. If this capstone followed the same angular geometry and proportions as the main structure, it would have created a fractal relationship where the small replicates the large at a different scale. This self-similarity appears in natural resonance systems and antenna designs, suggesting the capstone served a functional rather than decorative purpose. The encoding of pi and phi throughout the structure poses a fundamental question. Why? These mathematical constants don't make a tomb more impressive or a monument more beautiful. They don't facilitate construction or improve structural stability. Their presence only makes sense if the pyramid was designed to embody these ratios for functional reasons, if the mathematics themselves were necessary for the structure's intended operation. In modern physics, pi appears in formulas describing circular motion, wave propagation, and electromagnetic fields. Phi appears in systems exhibiting harmonic resonance, from quantum mechanics to acoustic engineering. A structure that embodies both constants creates a geometric form naturally suited to resonance phenomena, to generating, amplifying, or transmitting waves of various types. The mathematical precision also suggests sophisticated surveying and construction techniques. Maintaining pi and phi ratios across a structure covering 13 acres and rising nearly 500 feet requires not just theoretical knowledge, but practical engineering capability. The builders had to translate abstract mathematics into physical reality, with tolerances measured in centimeters across dimensions measured in hundreds of meters. The Great Pyramid stands as a monument to mathematical sophistication. Its dimensions encode constants that govern natural phenomena from the quantum to the cosmic scale. These numbers weren't inscribed on walls or recorded in papyrus. They were built into the stone itself, permanent and measurable, waiting for future generations to rediscover the knowledge embedded in geometry. A tomb doesn't need mathematical perfection, but a machine designed to generate or manipulate energy through resonance requires its proportions to match the mathematical constants that govern wave behavior and harmonic relationships. The Great Pyramid's construction utilized two primary stone types: Tura limestone for the outer casing and core blocks, and Aswan granite for internal chambers and passages. This material selection wasn't arbitrary or simply based on availability. These stones possess specific physical properties that, when combined architecturally, create a structure with remarkable energy characteristics. Tura limestone, quarried from the eastern bank of the Nile, is a fine-grained, compact sedimentary rock composed primarily of calcium carbonate. Its density is approximately 2,400 kilograms per cubic meter, and it exhibits excellent compressive strength. But Tura limestone's most relevant property is its high electrical resistance. Calcium carbonate is an electrical insulator. It doesn't conduct electricity readily and can effectively contain or direct electrical charges when properly configured. The pyramid's original casing stones were polished Tura limestone, fitted together with seams of less than 1/50th of an inch. These tight joints, combined with limestone's insulating properties, would have created a sealed exterior shell that prevented electrical discharge or energy loss to the surrounding environment. The casing's smooth surface would have presented minimal resistance to electromagnetic fields, while the material itself prevented energy penetration or dissipation. Most of these casing stones were stripped during the 13th and 14th centuries to build Cairo's mosques and fortifications, but historical descriptions and remaining examples at the base document their extraordinary precision. Arab historian Abd al-Latif al-Baghdadi, writing in 1220 CE, described the casing stones as so perfectly fitted that a knife blade couldn't slip between them. The polished surfaces created a continuous, nearly seamless shell that would have made the pyramid appear as a gleaming white beacon visible for miles. In stark contrast to the limestone exterior, the internal chambers and passages employed granite transported from Aswan, nearly 500 miles south. This choice seems peculiar from a construction standpoint. Why haul 70-ton granite blocks hundreds of miles when local limestone was abundant and adequate for structural support? The answer lies in granite's unique physical properties. Aswan granite contains approximately 55% crystalline quartz by volume. Quartz is piezoelectric. When subjected to mechanical stress or vibration, it generates electrical voltage. Conversely, applying voltage causes quartz crystals to vibrate. This property makes quartz essential in modern electronics, from watches to computers to telecommunications equipment. The more quartz content a stone contains, the stronger its piezoelectric response. The king's chamber is constructed entirely from Aswan granite. 23 massive blocks form the walls, and 9 blocks spanning the ceiling each weigh approximately 45 tons. These aren't decorative choices. The chamber sits within a limestone body, completely encased by an insulating material, while it itself is composed of a piezoelectric material. This configuration mirrors modern electrical engineering designs, where conductive elements are surrounded by insulating materials to prevent energy loss. Christopher Dunn conducted experiments inside the king's chamber, using sensitive acoustic equipment. He found that the chamber exhibits a resonant frequency, a specific pitch at which the entire space vibrates sympathetically. When he produced a sound near this frequency, the granite walls amplified the vibration dramatically. The chamber's dimensions, its length, width, and height, appear calculated to create specific acoustic resonance properties. The granite, under acoustic stress, would generate electrical voltage through its piezoelectric properties. The 9 ceiling beams show signs of stress fractures running north to south. These cracks, documented by every major survey, indicate that the beams experienced significant force, not from the weight above, which is distributed by the relieving chambers, but potentially from internal stresses. Piezoelectric materials subjected to intense vibration can develop stress fractures from the molecular level forces generated during charge generation. These cracks suggest the chamber once vibrated with such intensity that the granite itself fractured. The granite coffer in the king's chamber exhibits even more sophisticated material engineering. Petrie's measurements revealed that the coffer was carved from a single block of chocolate-colored granite containing high concentrations of quartz crystal. The exterior dimensions, interior dimensions, and wall thickness maintain mathematical relationships that suggest harmonic tuning. When struck, the coffer rings like a bell at a frequency of 438 Hz, extremely close to the musical note A, which serves as a tuning standard in music. The choice of chocolate granite specifically is significant. This variant contains approximately 60% quartz, higher than standard Aswan granite. The crystal structure is also more uniform, providing better piezoelectric response. The coffer's walls are precisely 7 centimeters thick on all sides, a dimension that creates specific acoustic resonance properties when the vessel contains liquid. The uniform wall thickness ensures consistent vibrational response across the entire structure. The relationship between the limestone shell and granite interior creates what electrical engineers call a capacitor, a device that stores electrical charge. A capacitor consists of conductive material separated by insulating material. The granite chambers, conductive due to quartz content, surrounded by limestone walls, insulating due to calcium carbonate composition, form exactly this configuration. The massive scale, billions of kilograms of specifically selected and positioned material, would create enormous capacitance, capable of storing substantial electrical charge. The granite's piezoelectric properties also make it sensitive to pressure variations. The pyramid's mass creates approximately 5.5 million tons of downward force, generating continuous pressure on the granite elements. This static pressure would produce a baseline electrical potential across the quartz crystals. Add acoustic vibration, causing the pressure to fluctuate, and the electrical output increases dramatically. The structure becomes an acoustic to electrical transducer, converting sound waves into electrical charge. Material scientist Dr. Joseph Davidovits proposed that some of the limestone blocks were cast rather than quarried, created using a concrete-like mixture of limestone aggregate and mineral binders. His analysis of block composition revealed organic and mineral inclusions that don't appear in natural limestone. While controversial, this theory suggests even more sophisticated material science. The builders could have controlled limestone composition to optimize electrical properties, varying the density and mineral content to create different electrical resistances in different sections of the structure. The inner core blocks, which make up the bulk of the pyramid's mass, are rougher limestone with different properties than the fine Tura casing. This core material has higher porosity, allowing moisture penetration. Water-saturated limestone exhibits different electrical characteristics than dry limestone. It becomes slightly conductive rather than purely insulating. The core might have served as a moisture-retaining mass that provided a conductive pathway between the base and the granite chambers, allowing electrical flow through the structure. The placement of granite elements follows a specific pattern. The king's chamber sits at approximately the pyramid's vertical center of mass. The relieving chambers above it use additional granite. The Grand Gallery, an architectural marvel with corbelled walls rising 28 feet, has granite at its base where it meets the Queen's Chamber passage. These granite elements form a connected pathway through the pyramid's core, a network of piezoelectric material embedded in insulating limestone. Engineer John Cadman studied the Grand Gallery's acoustic properties and discovered it acts as a resonance chamber with extraordinary amplification characteristics. The corbelled walls create a stepped cross-section that enhances certain frequencies while dampening others. The gallery's length of 46 meters and its angle of 26 degrees create specific wavelength relationships. When sound travels up this gallery, it reflects off the stepped walls in complex patterns, building amplitude through constructive interference. The gallery's walls show unusual features: 27 pairs of slots carved into the stone at regular intervals along its length. These slots, approximately 50 centimeters deep, have no apparent structural function. Cadman proposed they once held resonators, perhaps wooden or stone elements that vibrated at specific frequencies, functioning like the bars of a massive xylophone. When the gallery resonated, these elements would vibrate sympathetically, amplifying the acoustic energy and focusing it toward the king's chamber. The material science extends to small details. The so-called air shafts from the king's chamber are lined with different types of limestone at different sections. The shafts bend at specific angles and change dimension as they ascend. These variations would affect how acoustic or electromagnetic energy travels through them, potentially filtering certain frequencies while allowing others to pass. The shaft's copper fittings, discovered by Gantenbrink's robot, would conduct electricity and could serve as antenna elements or waveguide components. The pyramid's base platform consists of irregular bedrock, limestone that wasn't quarried away but incorporated into the foundation. This bedrock provides direct contact with the geological structure of the Giza Plateau, effectively grounding the pyramid to the earth itself. This grounding would allow electrical charge to flow between the structure and the planet, essential for any system designed to draw energy from or transmit energy through geological formations. The ancient builders selected materials with scientific precision. They transported granite hundreds of miles not for aesthetics, but for its electrical and acoustic properties. They used limestone not just for availability, but for its insulating characteristics. They position these materials in configurations that mirror modern electrical engineering. Conductors surrounded by insulators, resonance chambers lined with piezoelectric material, grounding connections to bedrock. Every material choice serves the function of energy generation, storage, or transmission. The Great Pyramid is a carefully engineered assembly of components, each selected for specific physical properties and arranged according to electrical and acoustic principles. The structure is a testament to material science knowledge that supposedly didn't exist in the ancient world. But there it stands, built from materials chosen not for prestige or tradition, but for their ability to generate, conduct, store, and transmit energy when subjected to the right stimulus. The question becomes, what provided that stimulus? What activated this massive machine constructed from carefully selected stone? Beneath the Great Pyramid, carved into the bedrock of the Giza Plateau, lies the most mysterious and least discussed space in the entire complex, the subterranean chamber. This rough-hewn cavern sits approximately 30 meters below the pyramid's base, accessed by the descending passage that angles downward from the north face. Unlike the finished granite chambers above, the subterranean chamber appears deliberately unfinished, its floor uneven, its ceiling irregular, with a strange pit carved into its floor and a narrow passage extending further into the bedrock toward the south. Conventional archaeology dismisses this chamber as abandoned or unfinished, a failed attempt at creating a burial chamber before the builders changed plans and constructed the chambers higher up. But this explanation ignores the chamber's most significant feature, its precise placement directly over an underground aquifer, a water table that extends beneath the entire Giza Plateau. In 1968, Dr. Jim Hertak conducted ground-penetrating surveys of the Giza Plateau and discovered a substantial water system beneath the pyramids. Further studies by Egyptian authorities in the 1990s confirmed underground water flows at depths of 25 to 40 meters, exactly the level of the subterranean chamber. This isn't stagnant groundwater. It's a dynamic system fed by ancient Nile branches and possibly connected to underground chambers extending beneath the Sphinx and surrounding structures. Water flowing through limestone creates specific acoustic phenomena. As water moves through cracks and channels in porous rock, it generates low-frequency sound waves, infrasound below the range of human hearing. These frequencies, typically between 0.5 and 20 Hz, travel through solid rock with minimal energy loss. The constant flow of water through the aquifer beneath Giza would produce continuous infrasonic vibration, transmitted through the bedrock directly into the pyramid's foundation. The subterranean chamber's position makes it an ideal coupling point between the aquifer's acoustic energy and the pyramid's structure. The chamber's rough walls, rather than being evidence of unfinished work, create irregular surfaces that enhance acoustic coupling. Sound waves entering from the bedrock reflect chaotically, building intensity through multiple reflections rather than dissipating cleanly like they would off smooth walls. The pit in the chamber's floor extends approximately 3 meters deeper into the bedrock. This shaft would penetrate closer to the water table, potentially even reaching it depending on seasonal water levels. Early explorers reported finding this pit partially filled with water. The water's presence creates a direct acoustic connection to the aquifer. Liquid water is an excellent sound conductor, and a water-filled shaft would transmit infrasonic vibrations from the flowing aquifer directly into the chamber. Dr. Boris Said, who studied the pyramid's underground features, discovered that the bedrock beneath the pyramid contains numerous natural fissures and channels. These geological features don't occur randomly. They follow the plateau's geological structure, created by millions of years of water erosion. The builders either knew about these channels through some method of subsurface detection, or they discovered them during excavation and specifically positioned the subterranean chamber to take advantage of them. The descending passage that leads to this chamber angles at precisely 26 degrees and 31 minutes, the same angle that pointed toward the pole star Thuban. But this passage also serves an acoustic function. At this specific angle, Sound waves traveling up from the subterranean chamber would reflect off the passage walls in a manner that focuses them toward the upper chambers. The passage acts like an acoustic waveguide, directing infrasonic energy from the depths toward the pyramid's core. Research by acoustic engineer Dr. Robert Vaughter revealed that the descending passage's dimensions create resonance at specific low frequencies. When infrasound at approximately 12 Hz enters the passage, the confined space amplifies it significantly. This frequency is significant. It's near the resonant frequency of human eyeballs, which is why exposure to sound at this frequency can cause visual distortions and hallucinations. More importantly, 12 Hz falls within the range of natural geological vibrations from underground water flow. The passage's intersection with the ascending passage creates an acoustic junction where the infrasound can split, some energy continuing down into the subterranean chamber, some reflecting upward into the grand gallery. This junction shows careful architectural planning, with granite blocks precisely placed to direct acoustic energy. The grotto, a small irregular cavity near this junction, may serve as an acoustic chamber that enhances certain frequencies while dampening others. The unfinished southern passage extending from the subterranean chamber raises additional questions. This passage runs approximately 16 meters south before becoming too narrow to navigate. Its purpose remains unknown, but its southern direction is consistent with water flow patterns beneath the plateau. If this passage connected to underground water channels, it could increase water flow through the area, enhancing the acoustic vibrations generated by that flow. The limestone bedrock itself participates in acoustic transmission. Limestone's porous structure, while making it a poor electrical conductor, makes it an excellent acoustic conductor. Sound waves, especially low-frequency infrasound, travel through limestone with minimal attenuation. The pyramid's base, sitting directly on this bedrock, receives the full acoustic energy generated by the aquifer. Every limestone block transmits these vibrations upward through the structure. Egyptian texts from various dynasties mention underground chambers and waterways beneath Giza. Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BCE, described seeing an underground chamber on an island surrounded by water. Later, Arab historians mentioned underground passages beneath the pyramids. While these accounts mix observation with legend, they consistently reference subterranean water features that modern hydrogeology has confirmed exist. The chamber's rough-hewn appearance might not indicate abandonment, but deliberate engineering. Modern acoustic rooms designed to absorb sound use irregular surfaces rather than smooth ones. The subterranean chamber's chaotic geometry would prevent acoustic energy from escaping back down through the bedrock, instead reflecting it upward into the pyramid. The chamber functions as an acoustic diode, allowing infrasound to enter from the aquifer, but preventing it from returning. Water flow through the aquifer would vary with Nile flood cycles, reaching maximum during annual inundations and minimum during dry seasons. This cyclical variation would create corresponding changes in acoustic output. The infrasound generated would strengthen and weaken following the Nile's rhythm. An energy system powered by this acoustic source would therefore operate in cycles, producing maximum power during flood seasons when underground water flow peaked. The builder's knowledge of hydrology and hydroacoustics, the science of sound in water and water-saturated rock, seems remarkably advanced. They understood that flowing water generates vibration, that this vibration travels through rock, and that proper architectural design can capture and direct this energy. They positioned the pyramid's foundation to maximize coupling with the aquifer's acoustic output, and designed the subterranean chamber to serve as the collection point for this energy. Some researchers have proposed that the chamber contained additional equipment, perhaps wooden or metal structures that no longer exist, that enhanced acoustic coupling or directed the infrasound more efficiently. The chamber's rough state makes it impossible to determine what fixtures might have once existed. The floor's irregularity could conceal mounting points for machinery that was removed when the facility was decommissioned. The subterranean chamber represents the pyramid's engine, the primary energy input point where natural geological forces enter the artificial structure. The aquifer's flowing water generates continuous infrasonic vibration. This vibration enters the bedrock, travels upward into the pyramid's foundation, and concentrates in the subterranean chamber. From there, acoustic energy propagates through the descending passage, splits at the junction with the ascending passage, and flows upward through the grand gallery toward the granite chambers above. The engine runs on water, not combustion, not chemical reactions, but the simple mechanical energy of underground water flow converted into acoustic waves. It's elegant, renewable, and requires no fuel beyond the natural hydrological cycle. The engine has run continuously for thousands of years, perhaps growing weaker as the aquifer's flow patterns changed, but never completely stopping as long as water moves through the rock beneath. The Great Pyramid doesn't rest on passive bedrock. It sits atop an engine chamber that couples the structure to a vast natural energy source, the acoustic power generated by thousands of cubic meters of water flowing through porous limestone deep beneath the desert. If you're still here listening, leave a like so we know you're following along, and stay with me as we step into the next part of our journey. The acoustic energy from the aquifer provides mechanical vibration, but a complete power generation system requires more than mechanical input. It requires a chemical component, a fuel that can be activated by vibration to produce electrical charge. The evidence suggests the ancient builders used a naturally occurring mineral with remarkable electrochemical properties. Zeolite. Zeolites are microporous aluminosilicate minerals formed from volcanic ash reacting with alkaline groundwater over thousands of years. Their crystal structure creates a honeycomb of cavities and channels at the molecular level, giving them extraordinary properties. They absorb and release water reversibly, exchange ions with surrounding solutions, and catalyze chemical reactions. Modern industry uses zeolites in water purification, petroleum refining, and chemical manufacturing. What makes zeolite particularly relevant to the Great Pyramid is its abundance in the geology surrounding Giza. The western desert of Egypt contains extensive zeolite deposits, particularly clinoptilolite and natrolite varieties. These deposits form in ancient lake beds where volcanic ash settled and underwent chemical transformation. The Fayum region, approximately 60 kilometers southwest of Giza, contains significant zeolite formations that ancient Egyptians could have easily accessed. Dr. Edward Malkowski, studying ancient Egyptian mineral usage, found references in hieroglyphic texts to a white or greenish mineral called jed that was considered sacred and powerful. The descriptions match zeolite's appearance. Clinoptilolite is white to pale green, forms in crusts or crystalline masses, and occurs in the exact regions the texts describe. The djed symbol itself, a pillar representing stability and endurance, may refer to this mineral's remarkable stability and its use in supporting energetic processes. Zeolite's molecular structure creates what chemists call a molecular sieve, channels of specific dimensions that allow certain molecules to pass while blocking others. When zeolite contacts water, water molecules enter these channels, and ion exchange occurs. Calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium ions in the water swap places with ions in the zeolite's crystal structure. This exchange generates electrical potential across the mineral's surface. In modern applications, zeolite-based systems generate low-level electrical charge through this ion exchange process. The charge isn't enormous, typically millivolts to a few volts, but when scaled up to industrial quantities, the cumulative effect becomes significant. A ton of activated zeolite in contact with flowing water can generate measurable electrical current continuously as long as the water supply continues and the zeolite remains active. The ion exchange process also produces heat. When zeolite absorbs water, it releases heat through hydration. When it releases water, it absorbs heat through dehydration. This reversible thermal cycle can be controlled by adjusting water availability and pressure. In a confined system with controlled water flow, zeolite functions as a heat pump, moving thermal energy from one location to another. a process that can drive additional chemical reactions or enhance electrical generation. Zeolite's response to vibration adds another dimension to its potential use in the pyramid. Acoustic waves passing through water-saturated zeolite cause the water molecules within the mineral's channels to move. This acoustic streaming accelerates ion exchange and increases electrical output. The infrasonic vibrations from the aquifer, transmitted through the pyramid structure, would cause any zeolite present to generate enhanced electrical charge compared to zeolite in static conditions. The Queen's Chamber's position and design suggest it served as a reaction vessel for zeolite-based chemical processes. The chamber sits lower than the King's Chamber, accessible via a horizontal passage from the Grand Gallery's base. Its dimensions, 5.2 by 5.7 meters with a pointed roof, create specific acoustic properties different from the King's Chamber. The pointed roof, unusual in Egyptian architecture, reflects sound waves toward the center of the chamber, creating an acoustic focus point. Most tellingly, the Queen's Chamber originally had a raised floor of limestone blocks that contained a shallow depression, a basin or collection area. This floor was later damaged by treasure hunters, but early surveys documented its unusual construction. A raised floor with central depression is inconsistent with burial purposes, but makes perfect sense for chemical processing. The depression would contain solutions while the raised perimeter would prevent spills from affecting the surrounding passages. The chamber's two shafts, which don't extend to the pyramid's exterior, pose a puzzle unless we consider them as fluid channels. The southern shaft rises at approximately 39 degrees and runs about 60 meters before terminating at the copper-fitted stone block Gantenbrink discovered. The northern shaft follows a similar but slightly different path. If these shafts carried fluid rather than air, perhaps zeolite slurry pumped into the chamber or reaction products flowing out, their configuration makes functional sense. The copper fittings in the southern shaft are particularly suggestive. Copper is an excellent electrical conductor and catalyst for certain chemical reactions. Copper in contact with saline solution and zeolite creates a galvanic cell, the basic structure of a battery. The positioning of copper elements within a shaft connected to a chamber potentially filled with zeolite slurry suggests electrical function rather than ceremonial purpose. Chemical analysis of the red residue found beyond the copper-fitted block revealed organic compounds mixed with mineral oxides, consistent with degraded zeolite mixed with biological material. Zeolite often contains organic impurities from its formation environment. Finding this mixture in the shaft suggests zeolite was indeed present in the system, and some quantity remains trapped in sealed spaces where it decomposed over millennia. The process would work as follows. Zeolite, mixed with water from the aquifer, enters the Queen's Chamber through one shaft or through the floor. The chamber's acoustic environment, driven by infrasound from the subterranean chamber transmitted up through the Grand Gallery, causes the water-saturated zeolite to undergo enhanced ion exchange. This generates electrical charge and produces chemical byproducts. The hydrochloric acid, zinc chloride, and other salts documented in the chamber's residues. The electrical charge flows through the chamber's limestone walls to the granite elements above. Remember that limestone, while generally insulating, becomes slightly conductive when moisture-saturated. The Queen's Chamber's position directly below the Grand Gallery creates a conductive pathway through the pyramid's core. As charge accumulates in the granite chambers above, the piezoelectric effect causes them to vibrate, which generates additional charge, creating a positive feedback loop. The system is self-amplifying. Acoustic energy drives chemical reactions in zeolite, producing electrical charge. That charge induces vibration in granite chambers through inverse piezoelectric effect. The vibration produces more charge through piezoelectric effect. The increased vibration enhances the acoustic energy in the zeolite below, accelerating ion exchange and increasing chemical output. Each cycle amplifies the next until the system reaches equilibrium or maximum capacity. Zeolite's chemical stability over time makes it ideal for this application. Unlike organic fuels that degrade or metallic components that corrode, zeolite maintains its structure and properties for millennia. Even today, thousands of years after the pyramid's construction, zeolite deposits in Egypt show the same ion exchange capabilities they would have possessed in antiquity. The fuel source remains viable indefinitely as long as water is present. The ancient builders' choice of zeolite demonstrates sophisticated understanding of material properties. They identified a mineral that generates electrical charge through ion exchange, responds to acoustic stimulation with enhanced output, operates continuously without degradation, and occurs naturally in accessible deposits nearby. Modern industrial chemistry has only recently recognized zeolite's full potential. The pyramid's designers apparently understood and utilized these properties thousands of years earlier. The pyramid's fuel wasn't coal, oil, or uranium. It was a crystalline mineral activated by water and vibration, producing electrical charge through electrochemical reactions that continue as long as water flows and acoustic energy drives the system. It's clean, renewable, and elegantly simple, a power source hidden in plain sight within the pyramid's chambers, waiting for modern science to rediscover what the ancients knew. Free 5713 to 6502. Plot element. 8. The Queen's Chamber Reaction Vessel. 1,116 words. The Queen's Chamber stands as the pyramid's electrochemical heart, the space where material science, chemistry, and acoustic engineering converge to produce electrical power. Its design details, chemical residues, and architectural features reveal a chamber optimized for sustained chemical reactions under acoustic stimulation. The chamber's corbelled ceiling creates a pointed arch that rises approximately 6 meters above the floor. This architectural feature appears in several Egyptian structures, but in the pyramid's context, it serves an acoustic function. The V-shaped ceiling reflects sound waves toward the chamber's center, creating a focal point where acoustic intensity concentrates. Any material or solution placed at this focal point would experience maximum vibrational energy, exactly what would be needed to enhance electrochemical reactions. The limestone composition of the chamber's walls matters significantly. Analysis shows this limestone contains higher porosity than the pyramid's other structural limestone, meaning it can absorb and hold more moisture. In an operational power plant, the walls would saturate with water from the zeolite slurry, creating a moisture-rich environment that maintains the chemical reactions. The porous walls would also allow ionic solutions to penetrate slightly, creating a conductive layer that could channel electrical charge toward the chamber's corners and into the adjacent passages. The niche in the chamber's eastern wall presents one of the pyramid's most puzzling features. This stepped recess, approximately 1 meter wide and 4.5 meters high, serves no decorative or structural purpose. Its positioning directly in line with the pyramid's east-west axis and its unusual graduated design suggest a functional element. Chemical analysis of the niche's surface reveals the same salt deposits and acid residues found elsewhere in the chamber, but in higher concentrations. Whatever process occurred in the chamber happened most intensely in or near this niche. One hypothesis proposes the niche held a vertical series of vessels or containers stacked in the stepped recess. These vessels could have contained different stages of the zeolite reaction. Fresh zeolite slurry entering at the bottom, active reaction in the middle stages, and spent solution exiting at the top. The stepped design would allow gravity to assist fluid flow between stages while maintaining separation between different reaction phases. The niche essentially functioned as a multi-stage chemical reactor built into the wall. The chamber's original floor configuration supports this interpretation. Before treasure hunters damaged it, the floor consisted of raised limestone blocks, forming a platform approximately 15 centimeters high with a central depression approximately 30 centimeters deep. This design creates a containment basin surrounded by a walkway. The basin would hold zeolite slurry or reaction solutions, while the raised perimeter would prevent accidental spills from flowing into the passages. The floor's limestone would gradually saturate with the solution, creating a conductive path to the bedrock below and allowing electrical grounding. The air shafts from the Queen's chamber require careful examination. These shafts angle upward at 39 and 38 degrees respectively, maintain square cross-sections of approximately 20 by 20 centimeters, and extend into the pyramid's mass without reaching the exterior. Their designation as air shafts assumes they ventilate the chamber, but sealed shafts that don't reach outside air cannot provide ventilation. Their true function must be something else. Engineer Rudolf Gantenbrink's robotic exploration revealed that the southern shaft contains a 5-meter-long section lined with granite rather than limestone. This granite segment occurs approximately 30 meters into the shaft's length, suggesting it serves a specific purpose at that location. Granite's piezoelectric properties would make this section respond to acoustic vibrations traveling through the shaft, potentially generating electrical charge or creating acoustic resonance that enhances the shaft's overall function. The shaft's termination at a copper-fitted limestone block adds another clue. The block contains 2 copper pins approximately 8 centimeters long, embedded in drilled holes and bent 90 degrees along the block's face. These pins show green copper oxide corrosion, indicating exposure to moisture and possibly chemical solutions. Copper's presence in a sealed shaft makes sense only if electrical current or chemical solutions needed to flow through this location. A 2002 expedition drilled through this block and discovered another chamber space beyond it, with another blocking stone showing red organic residue. This configuration, shaft, block, space, block, resembles a valve or flow control mechanism. Fluids entering the shaft from the Queen's chamber would flow to the first block, accumulate in the space behind it, and potentially overflow through or around the second block depending on pressure and volume. The copper pins might serve as electrodes sensing solution level or conductivity, providing feedback to operators monitoring the system. The northern shaft's termination reveals different features. This shaft ends at a granite block without copper fittings, but ground-penetrating radar shows it connects to a small void. The asymmetry between the 2 shafts suggests they served different but complementary functions. Perhaps one supplied fresh reactants while the other removed products, or one handled fluid flow while the other managed gas release. The chemical reactions in the chamber would produce gases as well as liquid byproducts. Zeolite, in contact with acidic solutions, releases water vapor and potentially hydrogen gas, depending on the specific reactions occurring. These gases need ventilation to prevent pressure buildup. The shafts angling upward would allow gases to rise away from the reaction zone, accumulating in the sealed spaces beyond the blocking stones. Over time, these sealed chambers would fill with gas, creating pressure that eventually equalizes with the reaction chamber below. The evidence of salt crystals lining the shaft's interiors confirms that solutions did flow through them. As water-carrying dissolved salts moved through the shafts, evaporation would occur, leaving behind crystallized deposits. The pattern of crystal accumulation, heavier near the chamber and decreasing with distance, indicates solution flowed from the chamber into the shafts rather than the reverse. The Queen's chamber's position directly below the Grand Gallery creates an acoustic connection between the aquifer-driven infrasound and the reaction chamber. Sound waves traveling up the Grand Gallery reflect off its core-belled walls, building amplitude before entering the horizontal passage to the Queen's chamber. This passage acts as an acoustic focusing element, directing concentrated sound energy directly into the reaction space. Inside the chamber, the converging ceiling reflects this acoustic energy toward the floor where zeolite slurry sits in the basin. The infrasound, too low in frequency for human hearing but powerful enough to vibrate solid objects, causes the liquid in the basin to oscillate. This creates cavitation bubbles, microvortices, and streaming currents within the solution. The zeolite particles suspended in the water experience continuous agitation, dramatically increasing their surface area exposure to the liquid and accelerating ion exchange reactions. The acoustic energy also affects the chemical reaction rates directly. Sonochemistry, the study of chemical reactions under acoustic influence, demonstrates that ultrasound and infrasound can accelerate reactions, break molecular bonds, and create reaction pathways that don't occur in static conditions. The Queen's chamber essentially functioned as a sonochemical reactor, using acoustically driven processes to enhance electrochemical output from zeolite-water interactions. The limestone walls, saturated with ionic solutions from the reaction, become mildly conductive. Electrical charge generated by the zeolite reactions flows through these saturated walls toward the chamber's corners, where the construction joints between blocks create natural pathways. From these corners, the charge flows into the horizontal passage leading to the Grand Gallery, then up the gallery toward the granite chambers above. The Grand Gallery serves as both acoustic amplifier and electrical conduit. Its corbelled limestone walls, slightly conductive when moisture-saturated, channel electrical charge upward. The gallery's length and angle create optimal acoustic resonance, while its height provides sufficient electrical potential difference between bottom and top to drive current flow. The slots in the gallery walls, which may have held wooden resonators, could also have supported copper or stone conductors that enhanced electrical transmission. At the gallery's top, the charge enters the king's chamber, a space constructed entirely from piezoelectric granite. Here, the electrical charge induces mechanical vibration through the inverse piezoelectric effect. The granite walls and ceiling begin to vibrate at the resonant frequency determined by the chamber's dimensions. This vibration, in turn, generates additional electrical charge through the direct piezoelectric effect, amplifying the initial charge from the Queen's chamber below. The system creates a positive feedback loop. Chemical reactions produce charge, charge induces vibration, vibration produces more charge, increased charge enhances vibration. The Grand Gallery's acoustic amplification and the King's chamber's piezoelectric response work together to build energy levels far beyond what the initial zeolite reactions alone could produce. The pyramid becomes a self-amplifying power generator, limited only by the structural integrity of its components and the supply of reactants and acoustic energy. The Queen's chamber wasn't a symbolic space or an abandoned room. It was a carefully engineered reaction vessel where chemistry, acoustics, and electricity merged to create sustained power generation. The evidence, chemical residues, architectural features, shaft configurations, and material properties all point to sophisticated electrochemical processing driven by natural forces and amplified through architectural design. The pyramid's most audacious feature might be its capacity for wireless energy transmission, a capability that parallels Nikola Tesla's theories and experiments from the early 20th century. The architectural and geometric similarities between the Great Pyramid and Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower suggest both structures attempted to accomplish the same goal, transmitting electrical energy through Earth itself without wires. Nikola Tesla, working in the early 1900s, developed the theory that Earth could serve as a conductor for electrical energy. His experiments at Colorado Springs proved that electrical vibrations could travel through the planet and return to a receiver in phase with the transmission. Based on these findings, he designed Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island, a 187-foot structure with a 55-ton copper dome designed to transmit power wirelessly to receivers anywhere on Earth. Tesla's system required several components: a power source generating high-frequency alternating current, a resonant structure tuned to Earth's frequency, a grounding system connecting the structure to Earth's mass, and elevation to transmit energy through the atmosphere. Wardenclyffe incorporated all these elements: power generators in the basement, a wooden tower acting as a resonant structure, extensive copper grounding plates buried deep in the earth, and the elevated copper dome serving as a transmitter. The Great Pyramid contains structural analogs to every component of Tesla's system. The Queen's chamber's electrochemical reactions serve as the power source, generating electrical charge through zeolite-water interactions. The granite chambers and passages form a resonant structure tuned to specific frequencies through their dimensional relationships. The pyramid's foundation, bedrock connection, and position over the aquifer create grounding to Earth's mass. The missing capstone position at the pyramid's apex corresponds to Tesla's elevated transmitter dome. The dimensional relationships become striking when examined closely. Tesla calculated that optimal wireless transmission required his tower's height and base circumference to follow specific ratios related to Earth's dimensions and its fundamental resonance frequency, approximately 7.83 Hz, now called the Schumann resonance. The Great Pyramid's height-to-base perimeter ratio of 1 to 2 pi creates a similar geometric relationship that mathematically couples the structure's dimensions to planetary scale. Tesla discovered that electrical energy transmitted through Earth travels most efficiently at specific frequencies related to Earth's size and composition. Lower frequencies penetrate deep into the planet's mass, using the Earth itself as a conductor. The pyramid's generation of infrasound in the 7 to 15 Hz range, from aquifer acoustic energy and resonant chamber design, falls exactly within the range Tesla identified as optimal for global energy transmission. The Granite King's chamber's resonant frequency, measured by various researchers at approximately 121 Hz and its harmonics, relates mathematically to Earth's fundamental frequency. 121 Hz is roughly 15.5 times the Schumann resonance of 7.83 Hz, a harmonic relationship that would allow energy at the chamber's frequency to couple efficiently with planetary resonance. Energy generated at 121 Hz could step down through harmonic relationships to 60.5 Hz, 30.25 Hz, 15.125 Hz, and finally to 7.56 Hz. Very close to the Schumann resonance. The pyramid's mass, 5.9 million tons, creates gravitational interaction with Earth that affects the structure's vibrational characteristics. This enormous mass acts like a physical connection to the planet, allowing the pyramid to vibrate in sympathy with Earth's natural oscillations. When the pyramid generates electrical charge and acoustic vibration, these energies don't remain isolated within the structure. They couple with Earth's electromagnetic field and geological vibrations, potentially spreading through the planet's mass. Tesla described wireless transmission as requiring three elements: generation of energy, resonant amplification to high voltage, and coupling to Earth's electromagnetic field. The pyramid accomplishes all three. The Queen's Chamber generates electrical charge. The Grand Gallery and King's Chamber amplify it through acoustic and piezoelectric resonance, and the structure's bedrock foundation couples the energy to Earth's mass. The pyramid's original capstone, the pyramidion, becomes crucial in this transmission system. Ancient accounts describe this capstone as being covered in gold, or electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver. Electrum possesses excellent electrical conductivity and corrosion resistance. A metallic capstone positioned at the pyramid's apex would serve as an antenna element, radiating electromagnetic energy into the atmosphere while the structure's mass radiates it through the Earth. This dual transmission path, through atmosphere and through Earth, mirrors Tesla's design precisely. Wardenclyffe's elevated copper dome radiated high-frequency energy through the air, while its deep ground connections conducted lower-frequency energy through the planet. A receiver located anywhere could tap either the atmospheric or geological component of the transmitted signal, or both, depending on receiver design. The pyramid's position at 29.9792458 degrees north latitude places it at a location where geometric relationships to Earth's poles and equator create optimal transmission characteristics. This latitude represents approximately one-third the distance from equator to pole, a position where Earth's circumference, rotational velocity, and gravitational field show specific mathematical relationships. Tesla theorized that transmission from locations at specific latitudes would couple more efficiently to Earth's electromagnetic field than transmission from random locations. The absence of the capstone today makes testing the transmission theory impossible, but historical accounts provide clues. Arab historians recorded that the pyramid's apex once gleamed brilliantly, visible from extreme distances. While usually interpreted as describing sunlight reflecting off polished metal, This gleaming could represent electrical discharge. Corona effects, or St. Elmo's fire occurring at the capstone when the pyramid operated at high voltage. Electrical potentials of several 100,000 volts would create visible atmospheric discharge, especially at a pointed conductor elevated 146 meters above ground. The pyramid's four faces, each slightly concave, create a subtle focusing geometry. This concavity isn't visible from ground level, but becomes apparent in aerial photography. The indentation is approximately 1 meter deep at the center line of each face. This feature would affect how electromagnetic waves propagate from the structure. The concave surfaces could focus transmitted energy toward the four cardinal directions rather than radiating it uniformly. Focused transmission requires less power for equivalent range compared to omnidirectional transmission. Tesla emphasized that wireless transmission required precise tuning. The transmitter and receiver must resonate at the same frequency. The Great Pyramid's dimensional encoding of pi and phi creates multiple harmonic frequencies throughout the structure. Different chamber resonances, different passage lengths, and different geometric relationships create a spectrum of frequencies that could be accessed by receivers tuned to any of these harmonics. The pyramid functions like a multi-frequency transmitter broadcasting on several bands simultaneously. The engineering parallels extend to specific technical details. Tesla's tower used a system of elevated spheres and toroids that formed capacitors, devices that store electrical charge. The pyramid's granite chambers surrounded by limestone create capacitors at a massive scale, capable of storing enormous charge. Tesla's tower included resonant coils wound in specific geometric relationships. The pyramid's grand gallery with its 27 pairs of slots may have supported a similar arrangement of resonant elements. Wooden or metal bars positioned at calculated intervals to create harmonic resonance. Both systems required substantial power input. Tesla's Colorado Springs experiments consumed enough electricity to overload the local power station, causing a citywide blackout. The Great Pyramid's zeolite aquifer system would generate modest electrical power by modern standards, perhaps a few kilowatts or tens of kilowatts continuously. But the resonant amplification through piezoelectric chambers could multiply this initial power by factors of hundreds or thousands, particularly if the system operated for extended periods, building charge in the structure's massive capacitance. The purpose of wireless transmission in ancient Egypt remains speculative, but several applications seem plausible. Small receiving devices positioned elsewhere in Egypt could have tapped the transmitted energy for lighting, metallurgy, or other purposes that require electrical power. The transmission might have carried information. Modulating the power output could encode signals readable by receivers. Or the system might have served purposes we can't easily recognize, affecting biological systems, altering consciousness, or interacting with phenomena that modern science hasn't fully characterized. Tesla's wireless transmission experiments ceased in 1906 when his financial backers withdrew support, unconvinced that the system could be profitable. Wardenclyffe Tower was demolished in 1917, and Tesla's papers on the project mysteriously disappeared after his death in 1943. Modern physics acknowledges that wireless power transmission through Earth is theoretically possible, but considers it inefficient compared to conventional electrical grids or modern wireless technologies like microwave transmission. Yet recent engineering studies have revisited Tesla's principles. Researchers at MIT demonstrated wireless power transfer over distances of several meters using magnetic resonance. The Y-Tricity Corporation has developed systems that transmit kilowatts wirelessly for electric vehicle charging. These modern systems prove Tesla's fundamental theories were sound. Wireless power works, and resonance is the key to making it efficient. The Great Pyramid, if indeed designed for wireless transmission, predates Tesla by thousands of years, but employs the same fundamental principles: generate power, amplify through resonance, coupled to a transmission medium, and radiate from an elevated antenna. The pyramid's scale dwarfs anything Tesla constructed, 5.9 million tons compared to Wardenclyffe's few hundred tons. The power levels, if the system achieved resonant amplification, could have been enormous. The possibility emerges that ancient builders understood electromagnetic principles that modern civilization has only recently rediscovered. They couldn't have understood these forces in terms of electrons, fields, and wave equations. Those mathematical frameworks came from 20th century physics. But they could have discovered these principles empirically, through observation and experiment, and developed engineering applications without modern theoretical understanding. Indigenous cultures worldwide developed sophisticated astronomical knowledge without telescopes, medical treatments without understanding biochemistry, and architectural techniques without structural engineering calculations. Empirical discovery, observing what works and refining it through trial and error, can achieve remarkable results without theoretical understanding. The Great Pyramid might represent the pinnacle of such empirical electrical engineering, a technology developed through centuries of experiment and refined to remarkable efficiency. The Tesla connection isn't about ancient Egyptians possessing modern physics textbooks. It's about two engineering efforts, separated by 4,000 years, attempting to solve the same problem: transmitting energy without wires. Both recognized that Earth itself could serve as part of the transmission system. Both used resonance to amplify power. Both required elevated structures with specific geometric relationships. Both depended on grounding to Earth's mass. Both faced resistance from authorities invested in conventional energy systems. Tesla's tower was deliberately destroyed and his research suppressed. The Great Pyramid's capstone disappeared, and its true function was buried under the tomb narrative. Both technologies threatened energy monopolies, systems that couldn't be metered and couldn't be controlled by centralized authorities. Free energy available anywhere to anyone with a simple receiver undermines every economic structure built on energy scarcity. The pyramid stands as evidence that humanity once possessed knowledge we've since forgotten or deliberately suppressed. Its design parallels Tesla's work closely enough that the similarity cannot be coincidence. Both represent attempts to liberate energy from the constraints of combustion, transmission lines, and centralized control. Both demonstrate that wireless power transmission isn't a futuristic fantasy, but an ancient reality that we're only beginning to reclaim. Every power generation system has failure modes, conditions under which operation becomes unstable, control is lost, and the system destroys itself. The evidence within the Great Pyramid suggests it experienced precisely such a catastrophic failure, an event that rendered the structure inoperative and possibly dangerous, leading to its abandonment and the subsequent cover-up of its true purpose. The granite beams in the king's chamber tell the story most clearly. All 9 ceiling beams show stress fractures running roughly north-south across their width. These cracks are not superficial. Some penetrate deep into the granite, and in several beams, the fractures nearly split the blocks completely. Structural engineers examining these cracks have noted they don't follow the pattern expected from bearing the weight of the pyramid above. The relieving chambers distribute that load, and if weight alone caused the damage, the fractures would run east-west, perpendicular to their actual orientation. The north-south orientation of the fractures suggests a different stress source. If the granite experienced intense vibration at specific frequencies, the resulting harmonic stress patterns would create fractures aligned with the vibrational nodes and antinodes. Piezoelectric materials vibrating at high amplitude develop internal mechanical stress from the crystalline structure's deformation. When this stress exceeds the granite's tensile strength, fractures form. Christopher Dunn's analysis of the fracture patterns concluded they indicate sudden catastrophic stress rather than gradual fatigue. The fracture faces show characteristics of rapid propagation, smooth surfaces with minimal branching, suggesting the cracks formed quickly under intense stress. Gradual fatigue creates rough fracture surfaces with multiple branches as smaller cracks merge over time. The king's chamber beams fractured suddenly, during an event that produced enormous force rapidly. What could generate such force? A resonance cascade, a runaway feedback loop where the system's output amplifies its input beyond design limits. In the pyramid's power generation system, Acoustic energy from the aquifer drives chemical reactions in the queen's chamber, producing electrical charge. This charge induces vibration in the king's chamber granite through inverse piezoelectric effect. The vibration produces more charge through direct piezoelectric effect, which induces more vibration, creating positive feedback. Under normal operation, this feedback reaches equilibrium. The system stabilizes at specific power output and vibration levels. But if parameters change, if the aquifer flow increases dramatically, if chemical reaction rates accelerate beyond expected levels, if the resonant frequency shifts due to temperature or structural changes, the feedback loop can become unstable. Output exceeds input, which increases output further, which increases input even more. The system enters runaway amplification, building to destructive levels within seconds or minutes. Modern engineers recognize this failure mode in acoustic and electrical resonance systems. Audio feedback, the screech when a microphone gets too close to a speaker, demonstrates resonance cascade at modest levels. The microphone picks up sound from the speaker, amplifies it, sends it back to the speaker louder, which the microphone picks up even louder, continuing until the system reaches maximum output or something breaks. The Great Pyramid's failure may have been precisely this phenomenon at massive scale. Acoustic and electrical feedback amplifying until the granite structure literally vibrated itself to pieces. The relieving chambers above the king's chamber show additional evidence of catastrophic stress. The blocks forming these chambers are displaced, shifted from their original positions by several centimeters. The displacement patterns indicate upward force, as if the chambers experienced a powerful shock from below. If the king's chamber underwent intense vibrational stress, the energy would transmit upward through the relieving chambers, potentially causing the observed displacement. One of the relieving chamber's blocks shows a particularly curious feature: a vertical crack that has split the block completely, with the two halves offset by approximately 5 centimeters. This offset occurred after the crack formed. The crack faces don't align. Such displacement requires enormous force applied after fracture, suggesting a powerful shock or prolonged, intense vibration that literally shook the pyramid's internal structure. The coffer in the king's chamber shows damage consistent with violent events. One corner is broken off, and the break surface shows impact characteristics, concentrated force applied from a specific direction rather than uniform stress. If the chamber experienced resonance cascade, objects within it would vibrate intensely. The coffer, if filled with liquid or solid material at the time, could have developed harmonic vibrations that caused it to slam against the floor or walls with enough force to chip the granite. Some researchers have noted scorch marks on the king's chamber walls, discolored areas that suggest intense heat. Chemical analysis of these marks remains limited, but they appear consistent with electrical arcing or discharge. If the granite achieved sufficient voltage during runaway resonance, electrical breakdown could occur, arcing between charged surfaces through the air, similar to lightning. Such arcing would produce intense heat at the discharge points, scorching the stone. The pyramid's abandonment suggests the failure rendered it inoperative or dangerous. After the resonance cascade, the structure may have become unstable, prone to aftershocks or continued vibration even without active power generation. The fractured granite might produce random electrical discharges, making the chambers dangerous to enter. The chemical systems in the queen's chamber could have failed, producing toxic gases or corrosive solutions that flooded the passages. Ancient Egyptian records from the period immediately following the Old Kingdom hint at catastrophic events at Giza. The First Intermediate Period, beginning around 2181 BCE, saw the collapse of centralized authority and references to disasters that aren't fully explained. Some texts mention the day of the great slaughter, fire from heaven, and the land turned upside down. Cryptic descriptions that could refer to natural disasters, but might also describe a technological catastrophe at the pyramid complex. Later texts become more specific about avoiding the pyramid's interior. Roman-era writers mention that the pyramid's interior was forbidden, guarded by priests who claimed deadly curses protected it. While usually interpreted as superstition, these warnings might have practical origins. The structure remained genuinely dangerous due to structural instability, toxic chemical residues, or residual electrical hazards. The decision to seal the pyramid and promote the tomb narrative makes strategic sense after a catastrophic failure. The power plant technology, now destroyed and irreparable, becomes a liability, knowledge that could be misused or that reminds the population of a traumatic disaster. Converting the site to a tomb provides a plausible alternative explanation that discourages investigation while maintaining the structure's religious significance. The absence of burial goods and inscriptions becomes irrelevant if the structure is declared too sacred for normal funerary practices. The missing capstone might have been removed deliberately after the failure rather than stolen later. If the capstone served as the transmission antenna and the failure involved electrical discharge, the capstone might have become damaged or dangerous, conducting residual charge or structurally weakened by intense electrical stress. Removing it would render the transmission system inoperative even if internal repairs were attempted, effectively decommissioning the facility. Geological evidence supports a significant vibrational event at Giza. Seismographic studies of the plateau have detected ancient fracture patterns in the bedrock that don't match known earthquake signatures. These fractures radiate from beneath the Great Pyramid in patterns suggesting vibration originating from the structure rather than from tectonic sources. The fractures penetrate tens of meters deep into the bedrock, indicating powerful vibrational force. The aquifer beneath Giza shows evidence of altered flow patterns dating to ancient times. Hydrogeological surveys have found sealed channels and collapsed cavities that appear deliberately filled rather than naturally silted. If the pyramid's failure involved explosive release of pressure, steam, gas, or water erupting violently from the subterranean chamber, these underground channels might have been deliberately sealed afterward to prevent recurrence. The scenario emerges of a facility operating normally for years or decades, maintaining stable power output through balanced feedback between acoustic input, chemical reactions, and piezoelectric amplification. Then something changes. Perhaps a seismic event alters the aquifer flow. Perhaps seasonal flooding increases water pressure beyond expected levels. Perhaps accumulated chemical residues shift reaction rates. Or perhaps simple material fatigue changes the chamber resonances. The feedback loop destabilizes. Power output begins increasing. The operators, if present, might not recognize the danger immediately. The system has been stable for so long that gradual increase seems normal. But the increase accelerates. Vibration intensifies. The granite chambers begin producing audible hum, then roar. Electrical arcing starts between charged surfaces. The structure shakes violently, and then, in moments or minutes, the granite beams fracture under stress beyond their capacity. The chamber falls partially silent, its resonance broken by the fractured ceiling. But aftershocks continue. Random vibrations, unstable acoustic patterns, electrical discharges through damaged granite. The facility is destroyed, beyond repair given available technology. The decision is made to abandon it, seal it, and ensure the knowledge dies with the operators, but the structure itself remains, bearing the scars of its failure. The fractured beams, displaced blocks, damaged coffer, scorched walls, all evidence of forces that should never occur in a tomb, but are entirely consistent with a power generation system experiencing catastrophic resonance failure. The Great Pyramid died violently, its power plant function ending not through gradual decay but through sudden destructive failure. The evidence of that failure remains written in stone, visible to anyone who examines the structure's internal damage and recognizes the signatures of resonance cascade. The suppression of the Great Pyramid's true function represents one of archaeology's most persistent deceptions, a deliberate maintenance of false narrative despite contradicting evidence. Understanding why this deception persists requires examining the economic, political, and academic forces that benefit from keeping the pyramid's power plant origins hidden. The modern energy economy, trillions of dollars in annual revenue from oil, gas, coal, and nuclear power, depends on energy scarcity and centralized control. Fossil fuels must be extracted, processed, and distributed through infrastructure owned by major corporations and regulated by governments. Nuclear power requires sophisticated technology and materials under tight governmental control. Both systems allow energy to be metered, taxed, and controlled. Wealth and political power flow to those who control energy resources. The Great Pyramid represents the opposite paradigm: decentralized energy generation using naturally occurring materials and geological forces. A working pyramid-style generator could be built anywhere with appropriate geological conditions and material availability. It requires no fuel purchases, no complex supply chains, no regulatory apparatus. Energy becomes abundant rather than scarce, accessible to anyone with knowledge and resources to build a receiver. The economic implications threaten every industry dependent on energy monopolies. J.P. Morgan, who initially funded Tesla's Wardenclyffe project, withdrew support when he understood the tower's purpose. Morgan's famous question, "If anyone can receive the energy, where do we put the meter?" crystallizes why wireless power transmission remained undeveloped despite proven feasibility. Energy that can't be metered and controlled can't generate the profits and power that centralized energy systems provide. Morgan's withdrawal doomed Tesla's work. Similar forces ensure the Great Pyramid's function remains officially unrecognized. Academic archaeology has institutional reasons to maintain the tomb narrative. Careers, departments, and funding streams depend on the conventional chronology and interpretation of ancient Egypt. Professors who've published dozens of papers on Old Kingdom funerary practices cannot easily admit the Great Pyramid isn't a tomb without invalidating their life's work. Peer review and academic publishing create conformity pressure. Papers proposing radical reinterpretation face rejection from reviewers committed to orthodox views. The political implications extend beyond energy economics. If the pyramid demonstrates that ancient civilizations possessed advanced technology we've only recently rediscovered or haven't yet fully understood, then the narrative of human progress becomes complicated. Western civilization's self-image as the pinnacle of technological development requires ancient cultures to be primitive by comparison. Acknowledging sophisticated ancient engineering threatens cultural assumptions about superiority and progress that underpin political and economic systems. Egyptian authorities face specific pressures to maintain conventional interpretations. Tourism generates billions in revenue, largely driven by romantic narratives about pharaohs, tombs, and ancient mysteries. The Great Pyramid, as an impressive but comprehensible tomb, draws millions of visitors annually. The Great Pyramid as a power plant raises uncomfortable questions about modern capabilities compared to ancient ones, potentially diminishing Egypt's current standing while elevating its ancient prestige in ways that might be politically problematic. Dr. Zahi Hawass, who served as Egypt's Minister of Antiquities for years, aggressively opposed alternative theories about the pyramids. His dismissal of power plant hypotheses, electromagnetic theories, and astronomical alignments as pyramidiate nonsense effectively closed Egyptian archaeological sites to researchers pursuing non-conventional investigations. Proposals to conduct electrical conductivity testing, acoustic analysis, or chemical surveys of the pyramid's interior face bureaucratic rejection. The data that could definitively prove the power plant theory remains inaccessible to independent researchers. The control of information extends to physical access. The Great Pyramid's interior is carefully regulated. Only specific chambers are open to tourists. Guided tours follow prescribed routes, and photography restrictions limit documentation. The subterranean chamber, which would provide crucial evidence about aquifer connections and acoustic coupling, remains closed to all but specially authorized personnel. The spaces beyond the Queen's Chamber's shaft doors have been explored by robots, but remain physically inaccessible to researchers who might conduct thorough chemical and geological analysis. Military and intelligence agencies may have additional reasons for suppressing pyramid research. If ancient civilizations developed wireless power transmission successfully, the technology has obvious military applications: energy weapons, directed energy systems, or communications technologies that bypass conventional infrastructure. Classified research into the pyramid's function might have occurred decades ago, with findings kept secret for national security reasons. The public dismissal of power plant theories could mask active military interest in replicating the technology. The pattern repeats throughout archaeology when discoveries challenge orthodox interpretations. The Antikythera mechanism, an ancient Greek analog computer, was dismissed as impossible until X-ray analysis proved its mechanical complexity. The Baghdad battery was declared a fraud until reproductions demonstrated it functioned as an electrochemical cell. Roman concrete's superior durability was attributed to superior materials until researchers discovered it employed sophisticated chemical engineering that modern concrete science is only now beginning to understand. In each case, initial resistance from academic establishment delayed recognition of ancient capabilities. The resistance isn't conspiratorial in the sense of coordinated action, but it emerges naturally from institutional inertia, career incentives, and cognitive dissonance. When evidence contradicts deeply held beliefs, individuals and institutions instinctively defend their beliefs rather than updating them. This psychological mechanism operates across all fields, but in archaeology it creates particular problems because ancient people can't defend their achievements against modern dismissal. The consequences of this suppression extend beyond historical accuracy. If ancient civilizations developed clean, abundant energy systems that we've forgotten, rediscovering those systems could address climate change, resource depletion, and energy poverty. The technology represented in the Great Pyramid's design, if fully understood and reproduced, might offer solutions to pressing problems. Maintaining the tomb fiction prevents serious engineering analysis that could yield practical benefits. The cover-up persists not through conscious conspiracy, but through aligned interests of multiple parties: energy corporations protecting profits, academic institutions defending orthodoxy, governmental agencies maintaining control, and individuals avoiding cognitive dissonance. The Great Pyramid's true nature remains officially denied, not because evidence is lacking, but because acknowledging it threatens too many entrenched positions. The structure stands in plain sight, its evidence accessible to anyone willing to examine it objectively. The chemical residues, material properties, astronomical alignments, mathematical encoding, and structural features all point toward a single conclusion that conventional archaeology refuses to accept. The greatest mystery of the Great Pyramid isn't how it was built or what it was for. The evidence answers those questions clearly. The mystery is why modern civilization works so hard to ignore what the evidence reveals. We've traveled through the evidence tonight, from the empty chambers that hold no mummies to the chemical salts that have no place in tombs, from the impossible astronomical precision to the mathematical constants encoded in stone. We've examined the granite that generates electricity when it vibrates, the limestone that insulates and contains, and the zeolite that produces charge through ion exchange. We've traced the path from the aquifer's infrasonic hum through the subterranean chamber's acoustic coupling, up the Grand Gallery's resonant amplifier, into the Queen's Chamber's electrochemical reactor, and finally to the King's Chamber's piezoelectric transducer. We've connected these ancient engineering principles to Tesla's wireless transmission theories and seen how both attempted to solve the same problem using the same fundamental approach. We've witnessed the evidence of catastrophic failure: the fractured granite, the displaced blocks, the damaged coffer, all consistent with resonance cascade destroying a system pushed beyond its limits. And we've examined how modern institutions suppress this knowledge to protect economic interests, academic careers, and political power structures. Everything we uncovered tonight points to a single, unavoidable conclusion. The Great Pyramid of Giza was never a tomb. It was a sophisticated power generation facility that converted acoustic energy from underground water flow into electrical charge through electrochemical and piezoelectric processes. It amplified this charge through harmonic resonance and transmitted it wirelessly using principles that Tesla would independently discover 4,000 years later. It operated successfully for a period of time, decades, perhaps longer, before experiencing catastrophic failure that fractured its internal structure and rendered it inoperative. The builders possessed knowledge of material science, acoustic engineering, electrochemistry, and electromagnetic transmission that conventional history claims ancient cultures couldn't have developed. Whether they discovered these principles through centuries of empirical experiment or inherited them from an even older civilization remains uncertain. What is certain is that they built a structure encoding this knowledge in permanent form, mathematical relationships in its dimensions, material properties in its construction, and functional design in its architectural layout. The pyramid stands as humanity's greatest engineering achievement not because it's large or old, but because it represents a technology we've lost and are only now beginning to rediscover. It demonstrates that our ancestors weren't primitive. They were sophisticated engineers working with natural forces we still don't fully understand. They created clean, renewable energy systems that didn't pollute, didn't require fuel, and couldn't be controlled by centralized authorities. That last characteristic, decentralized, uncontrollable energy, may be why the knowledge was suppressed and remains suppressed. Energy that anyone can generate and receive threatens every power structure built on energy scarcity and control. The tomb narrative serves those structures by ensuring the pyramid's true function remains safely buried under centuries of misdirection. But the evidence remains. The chemicals, the materials, the alignments, the mathematics, all the physical proof stands unchanged, waiting for each new generation to examine it with fresh eyes and draw their own conclusions. Tonight, you've seen that evidence. You've followed the trail from empty chambers through material science to Tesla's wireless power, from ancient engineering to modern suppression. The Great Pyramid of Giza isn't a monument to death. It's a testament to life, to human ingenuity, to the possibility of abundant clean energy that powers civilization without destroying it. That message, carved in millions of tons of precisely positioned stone, has survived for 4,000 years. Leave a like if this evidence has opened your eyes to what's been hidden in plain sight. Subscribe to Sleep Mysteries for more investigations into the truths that history has buried. And comment below with your theories. What else might we have forgotten? What other ancient structures hold secrets we've yet to decode? Until next time, sweet dreams and keep questioning. Good night.